few weeks ago, I hopped on Fortnite and discovered this new creative map called One Battle After Another. It turns out this is based on a movie, and I saw that movie, and, excuse me. Oh my God! One Battle After Another is the latest from legendary filmmaker Paul Thomas Anderson. It's the first of his starring legendary actor Leonardo DiCaprio, but it also stars Tiana Taylor, Sean Penn, Benicio del Toro, and newcomer Chase Infinity. Based loosely on the Thomas Pynchon novel Vineland, the film tells the story of a stoned and washed-up revolutionary named Bob, who embarks on a mission to rescue his daughter Willa after she goes missing. If you didn't know, I'm a pretty big PTA guy, especially as of recent. When I first discovered his films, I felt almost overwhelmed by how different his work moved compared to other directors. His films have a natural way of evolving that gives them a raw, oftentimes uncomfortable feeling. You never really know what's going to happen in his movies, how he's going to end the film, or what he's trying to say most of the time. I'd argue a large part of his appeal, at least in recent years, is making the case for a film not needing to have a definitive point or message. And now we have One Battle After Another, a film that's both incredibly relevant to the times we're living in, but that doesn't lose sight of PTA's signature qualities as a filmmaker. To cut to the chase, and I don't say this lightly, it's probably the most important movie of the decade. One Battle After Another. Yeah, sounds like every day of my life on the internet. No, literally. It's terrifying how much of my own personal information I've found by just Googling my name. And it's not just me, it's you too, pal. If you've ever wondered how scammers get your phone number or why your inbox is flooded with spam, this is why. There are companies called data brokers that sell your data. They do it without your consent, and they make billions selling it to marketers, scammers, and even stalkers. And while they're legally required to remove your info if you ask, they make the process incredibly hard and complicated on purpose. And that is why I recommend today's sponsor, Aura, to my friends and family. Aura takes care of the hard part, automatically removing your info from these sites and keeping it off. Having used Aura for well over a year now, I can safely say that I've felt a lot safer. The idea of my personal info being out there and being easily accessible is not the dark fear looming over me like it used to be. You may already have a digital security tool, but not having Aura is like locking the front door but leaving the back door wide open. They have tons of really helpful tools, like you can get alerts if your personal info is found on the dark web. There's 24/7 monitoring to help keep your identity secure. Not to mention they also have US fraud experts ready to help 24/7. One app, every layer of protection. The idea that there are companies out there ripping me off and selling my data for profit is frankly lame. That's why I choose Aura. Try Aura free for 14 days at aura.com/Karsten. In those 2 weeks, you'll discover where your data is being exposed and sold. Guys, I'm not leaving myself vulnerable, and you shouldn't either. Now let's get back into the video. I'll just come out and say it. This is the most I've been entertained by any movie all year, maybe in the last few years. One Battle After Another is about 2 hours and 40 minutes long and somehow feels an hour shorter than that. A lot of that has to do with the fact that at one point this really just feels like one giant action sequence, but Johnny Greenwood's frenetic score and the incredibly snappy edit of this is mostly why this flies by. It's similar to how in Killers of the Flower Moon a few years ago, large chunks of the film would fly by with the entrancing score behind the whole thing. In One Battle After Another, I completely lost myself in the movie from basically the opening scene. One of my favorite traits of PTA is his ability to naturally break free of traditional film structure, not in a way that feels showy or experimental, but in a way that favors the emotional arcs of the characters over plot details. This is certainly the case here and gives reason for why this specifically feels a lot more captivating than what you're used to, but I would also say this is the first time in a while where he seems to take these skills of his and make it accessible. I'm not one to analyze box office performance too much. Most of the time I consider it completely irrelevant to the actual work, but that said, this is a movie that was built to be seen by a lot of people. It's not a love letter in the way Licorice Pizza was, it's not a hazy stoner comedy like Inherent Vice, or even a quietly subversive masterpiece like Phantom Thread. It's a sincere father-daughter drama inside of an action movie. More than anything though, I found it to be incredibly hopeful, a genuinely surprising direction for someone like PTA who has historically leaned cynical in his most iconic work. The last thing a lot of people want right now is a film trying to understand the time we're living in that also happens to be challenging and grim. Exhibit A. Don't get me wrong, I am all for that. There's something cathartic about looking the ugliness right in the face, but I think hope is just as necessary, getting out of the rot. We need something to give us that release. A film that attempts to make sense of what's going on, that's also thrilling and ridiculous and moving and hopeful. Well, here it is. With all those descriptors, you would think this would feel unrecognizable as a PTA film, especially these days considering his recent output. And while this is noticeably more accessible, I wouldn't say this sacrifices his usual tricks at all. In fact, you might even call this the most PTA film. Again, the satisfyingly clunky score is there, the stoner humor is there, the dad humor is there, the coked up energy, the laid back energy. Alana Haim, fresh in my mind, just a couple days out. I'm not sure I would call it his best movie, but at the same time, it does read like a film that took an entire career to make. I was lucky enough to see this in VistaVision, so I might be a little biased here, but damn does this look incredible. I am always a sucker for desert cinematography and am consistently impressed by how many ways filmmakers are able to capture such a bare landscape. So it should come as no surprise that PTA of all people manages to capture roads and dust and boulders in a way I've never seen done before. There's a car chase scene in here. You probably know what I'm talking about. That teeters on being psychedelic and how the camera just follows the hills as they go up and down and up and down. As you're speeding from inside the car, it feels like you're in an ocean. Again, hard to feel the runtime on something that feels completely entrancing. That's just one example of many in this film. The whole cast is fantastic, but Sean Penn specifically. I don't want to be hyperbolic, but it might be my favorite supporting actor performance of the decade so far. I don't know how you beat this. It's one of those instant all-timers where he doesn't miss a single beat. He's like leathery and robotic all at the same time. Every twitch in his face, the way he walks, his ability to make this character both hilarious and deeply unsettling at the same time. Something I love about PTA is how he's talked about his characters in the past as all being lovable. Even his most troubled protagonists are written with a tremendous sense of empathy. Here, though, many of the ghoulish and silly villains are written like actual psychopaths. These threatening figures have popped up in short spurts here and there throughout his filmography, usually barely visible to the viewer. But here, you really get to spend time with them, and while I wouldn't say he writes them with a lot of love, he doesn't write them as being all that powerful either. They're just buffoons. I feel like I've spent a lot of this video talking about how fun and entertaining this movie is, because that really is the biggest thing I got out of a first viewing. But I don't want to overshadow just how sweet it is too. It's something that I've never really seen from him before. Even in his most romantic films, which I consider to be all-timers, I wouldn't call those movies sweet, but this is incredibly tender, and that's to me why the film really worked. Not only do I believe the love within this family, I see all forms of connection in this film. Connection, love, and good intentions even in some of the messiest, most flawed characters. You get the sense here that PTA believes in humanity. He believes in future generations. Instead of making fun of them or critiquing them, as so many filmmakers of his status and generation would typically do, he embraces the world he lives in. It's through this act of simply attempting to understand the world we live in and the people inside of it that things can change for the better. Again, he's not the type of filmmaker to have messages or points in his films, but if this had one, that would be it. So listen, man, I don't usually like to call things this early, as there are so many films left this year that I'm through the roof excited for. I mean, I still haven't seen Gabby's Dollhouse, who knows what's gonna happen there, but it's gonna be tough finding something that hits the way One Battle After Another does. There have been some bangers in recent years, no doubt. You can't tell me it's been dry in the 2020s, but we've been starving for something like this. And by we, I really mean we. Something that your mom is gonna like, that your dad is gonna like, that your dog is gonna like. An instant classic where you finish it and then you just instantly buy a ticket for the next day. A film that is trying to understand the world we're living in, not by trying to answer anything, not by trying to punch down on anyone, but by bringing this horrible feeling to the screen and actually doing something significant with it, something thrilling and something sincere. In case you forgot, this is what it's all about, man. And that's what I got. Thanks for watching. Go watch One Battle After Another and form your own opinion, and I'll see you in the next one.